I'm Hailey Serna with my colleague Molly Schiffer, and we're here at the Courtauld Gallery in London.
The piece that we're looking at is the Bar Folies-Bargère by Edvard Manet. He painted his piece in France in 1881 and was born in the unforgiving 19th century, which was a terrible time for the French government as it was in a state of fluctuation.
Yes, he was born into a class of order, a society in which social hierarchy was of the utmost importance. Critics generally either loved or hated Manet.
But most agree that Manet defined the Impressionist style of painting by using vivid colors rather than distinct outlines to form shapes.
He was pretty miserable during the end of his life, which prompted him to paint with dark, somber colors as shown in the bar at Folies-Bargère.
In the painting, we're looking at what's probably the famous Folies-Bargère bar in France, which was somewhat of a hotspot for those among the bourgeoisie class to wine and dine. In the painting, there are many men in black top hats, which was representative of the bourgeoisie class.
But first, let's discuss the obvious focal point of this painting, which is the young and juvenile-looking girl due to the style of her bangs and how they fall onto her forehead.
Yeah, her rosy cheeks and pale complexion, as well as her slim waist, also make her look really young. She's wearing a lacy black dress, which is really low-cut and tight. In her cleavage, there appears to be some brightly colored flowers.
Yes, and she's clearly standing behind the bar. To our left, we see many fancy champagne or wine bottles sitting on the counter, and to our right, we see a glass dish of oranges. The counter is marble, and her hands are resting on the inside of the counter.
Also to our right stands a woman with her back facing the audience as she is flirtatiously talking to a man. The image, as well as the multitudes of people in the background, are a reflection of what the woman in the center sees. Everyone in the background seems to be really enjoying themselves, which is an interesting contrast with her blank, almost sad expression of her face.
Yes, it seems to me that the sad expression on her face is a reflection of her longing to have fun in the club along with the rest of the bourgeoisie. The naive girl who stands in the center seems to be fantasizing about having a husband and being a part of that glamorized bourgeoisie lifestyle. We see this fantasy play out towards the right side of the painting, where her back is faced towards the audience as she is engaging in conversation with a bourgeois man. This idea is clearly seen in the epic masterwork of Les Miserables when written by Victor Hugo. Here Hugo describes the character Fantine as being really young, innocent, and stunningly beautiful. Fantine equates her happiness, love, and acceptance with being a bourgeoisie woman. She falls in love with a bourgeois man who eventually abandons her. Clearly, she is the quintessential literary representation of what we see here in this painting. The sad expression on the girl's face shows that she's longing for something more, which is represented in her fantasy of talking to the clearly bourgeois man in the background.
Although I can see your point, I would actually disagree to a certain extent. I think that although the expression on her face is a little sad, I think it's more blank. The oranges to her left represent the erotic nature of her body, and this is also represented in the champagne bottles to her right. They are gilded in gold at the top, which represents her ornate jewelry, and black and dark at the bottom, which represents her curvaceous body. In the background, she's talking rather flirtatiously with the bourgeoisie man. The painting, in my opinion, represents how women were generally objectified in society as sex objects during the Industrial Revolution. This is represented in the poetic works of Oscar Wilde, where we are shown female characters that are prostitutes, and are represented in an unflattering and harsh way by Wilde himself. In one of these poems, The Harlot's House, Wilde displays prostitutes as unnatural mannequins who are turning the natural right of sexual intercourse into a business. The blank look on the girl's face in the painting shows her uncaring attitude for the man, and the reality of how women would sexually sell themselves to men without actually caring about them or their feelings.
Regardless of which interpretation is correct, we can definitely see, as Molly said, that it was a curse to be a woman in the Industrial Revolution. In this age, men were seen as possessing tactile skills, while women were simply seen as sexual objects. This perception was so damaging that in modern society, over a century later, women are still somewhat seen in this way.
I agree.